Hello, I hope everyone's doing fine. Today I will be recording another video for dynamic memory allocation in C. As you can see, this question has been taken from the fall of 2024 from the UCF Past FE website. So let's just read the question first. So the struct video game maintains information about video games that are stored in an inventory. Okay, so we have a struct here called video game. It has three components. It has a name, which is just an, a character array. We have the year, which is the game is produced in, and then we have the price, which is the price of the video game, right? As a fan of 1980s, you would like to get a list of games that were produced in between the years of 1980 and 1989 inclusive. All right, so we need to uh, return an array of all the video games that were produced between those years 1980 till 1989. Write the function below that takes in an array of type video game, its length n, and a pointer to the variable that will store the number of games produced in the 1980s. The function should return a newly dynamically allocated array storing a copy of all the information for the games that were produced in the year 1980s and set the variable pointed to by PTR num games to the size of the games that were sorry PTR num games to the size of the array returned by the function. This copy must be a deep copy where individual component is copied over, including allocating memory for the copy of the name and copying the name into the new memory. As you can see, this is a very big question, so I'm going to break it down in smaller pieces so you can understand what the question is asking us or what the question even is, right? Because I definitely had a problem understanding the question at very first glance, but when I did solve this question, I can tell you this was one of the better questions that I solved. I had a very fun time solving this question. So essentially, what the question is telling us, we have an array of video games, right? Video games, video games, which is a dynamic array. So let's just assume the size of this array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, right? So each block has like three components, right? So this is 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So each has like their own. So they have their name, they have their year, and they have their price. And that's the same for like every box. Like every box here, we're storing an array of video games, an inventory in this case, and then each box has name, year, and price. And what we have to do is we have to create another array called result, which is also dynamic. And then we have to check if the year is between 1980 to 1989. And if it is, I want to append it to this, right? If this checks out, I want to append it to this place, right? Let's just say this was the case in this, right? I want to append it here. Let's just say this game was not produced between the year of 1980 to 1989. I don't want to do anything. I'll go over here and then I'll check if this game was produced in the year of 1980 to 1989. And if it was, then I kind of want to just copy it here, right? And I want to return this array and also the size of this array, right? So as you can see, that's what we have to do. We have to return the res array, the result array, and the size of this new array, which stores all the video games from the year 1980 to 1989, both of them inclusive. So that's what we have to do. Hopefully you were able to understand it. So one way to do this is also we have been provided this like tracker called ng, which is set to 0. So ng will be here, like in memory, like ng is something like here, the starting address of this array. And whenever we find a video game that has a, which is produced between those years, I can just append it here and I can move ng to new place and then so forth, right? And then that's how it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through this whole array, check if the video game was made it within those years, append it to res, and then return res, and then the pointer, right, which stores the size of this newly allocated res array. So that's like the whole point of what we're doing here. So let's just jump straight right into the question. So what I'm gonna do, so they kind of have already kind of solved this question a little bit for us already. They have allocated space for the result array, and they have made it to be the same size as this, right? To be the same size as this, but obviously that might not be the case. Uh, in some test cases, it might be the case that these two arrays are of the same size, but in some test cases, it might be the case that it is half of the size of this, right? So we need to reallocate space for that as well. So they kind of have done that part for us already, so we don't have to worry about it. We're just gonna run a loop over here and then copy the elements to this array if they're being produced between those years. So let's just solve it. I'm gonna use a green pen for this. First step is first. I'm gonna run a for loop for this given array, which is called inventory, right? So I'm gonna do for int I equal to 0, I is smaller than n, which is the length of inventory, I plus plus, right? I'm gonna say if inventory dot year, inventory at the ith position, inventory at the I'm gonna use an abbreviation called INV, so it's like easier for me to solve, but obviously in the FE use the whole names. Inventory at the ith position, again, inventory at the ith position dot year is bigger than or equal to 1980, and inventory at the ith position dot year is smaller than or equal to 1989. I wanna append it to my result array, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. So the easier part is obviously I can just copy this, the year and the price. For this, it's kind of tricky, not tricky, but it's kind of just, you kind of have to do some extra steps, right? You need to allocate space for this, and then copy all the elements, or then copy all the characters to the newly allocated memory, right? So I'm just gonna do the easy part first, which is just I'm just gonna copy it. I'm gonna say res. I don't know why my. All right, there we go. Res at the position ng, which is initialized to be 0 over here, catches the value of inv at the ith position dot year. Since that's the video game that was between those year, and then res ng catches the value of inv I at the ith position dot price. So that's the easy part, right? Now I need to allocate space for this, and then copy the name of the video game here, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna do I'm gonna call malloc for res at ng dot name equal to malloc. I'm gonna do size of char times the string length of the inventory name, right? So I'm gonna do str length of the inventory inv dot inv at the ith position dot name plus 1, because for the null terminator, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. So hopefully like you can follow this. I know it's kind of tricky to like follow what I'm doing, but if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help. So that's what we're doing. And then ng is appended also, like we can increment ng, right? And then we can like realloc. Why are we reallocating here is because realloc can not only increase the size of the array, but it can also shrink the size of the array, correct? So for example, let's say like we were given the video game inventory array only had two games that were produced between the year of 1980 to 1989. Uh, but the result memory, I mean, sorry, the result array was firstly initialized to be the exact same size of this array, right? So that's kind of like the problem. We were using all this extra space when we don't really need it. So we like reallocate the space to be the size of this. So we are like, so we're not taking up as much memory as like we're not taking up memory that we don't need, right? So that's like the whole point. And then we're setting the PTR num games to be the size of ng, which is just like the tracker that tracks how many video games were produced between the year of 1980 to 1989. And then finally we're returning the result, which is the array of storing all the games that were produced between the years 1980 to 1989. So yeah, this question is kind of tricky, but once you understand like the basics of it, it's just basic syntax. Like once you understand like the idea behind solving this question, this whole part is just like the basic syntax of C, of how you allocate memory, of how you allocate memory for a character array, and then how you uh, copy it. Oh, sorry, actually we didn't even use stir copy here. You have to use string copy. We would use where and what. So at the place of result ng dot name catches the same as inventory at the ith position dot name. So yeah, so like the problem is kind of the easy, but the hard part is like all this jargon, I would say here, right? Because that's like and see how you like resize in Python. The arrays kind of do like they resize them by themselves, but in C you have to kind of do it manually, and that's why I like C. Like you have the control. So hopefully you were able to understand this question. If you did have any problems, let me know. You can obviously find this picture, like this whole picture, in my description. I will be uploading it to my GitHub. All right.